Be outdone. And without further ado, to that introduction, I'm sorry. Our next speaker has been a Toastmaster and a member of NPS Toastmasters for 12 years and has achieved the rank of Distinguished Toastmaster. Today, he's actually going through the Competent Communicator Manual for, I believe, the 7th time. And in delivering speech number 4, which purpose is quote, how to say it, the purpose of which is to use words and rhetorical devices to communicate the message. The title of his speech is Forgiveness, Myths and Practice. Please help me welcome Arnie Buss.
When was the last time you got really angry? When was the last time you held on to a resentment for more than 24 hours? Now, I know that most of you live in the idyllic world where none of that ever happens to you. And if that's the case, you can stop listening now and we'll tell you when to start listening again. But in the off chance that some of you feel that you have somebody for whom you have to forgive, you might want to listen to a few myths about what forgiveness is and a practice that I found to be very helpful in doing forgiveness. The opposite of forgiveness is holding on to resentment, of course. And whenever we get angry, that's an indication that we're holding on to resentment. Holding on to resentment has been likened to drinking poison and hoping the other person would get sick. One of the reasons we don't forgive is because of the many myths that we have about it. The first myth about forgiveness is the phrase, forgive and forget. I think, well, how can I ever forget what was done to me? I can't, so I can't forgive. Forgiveness is not about forgetting. Forgiveness is more about actually remembering but choosing to not let the pain take you. It's more like a scar that reminds you of something that may have happened that was not acceptable. Another myth is that if I forgive someone, then that means I have to reconcile with them. If you have a friend or someone in a relationship that does something which is totally out of bounds, then how do you keep from drinking that poison of resentment if you have to keep accepting what's not acceptable? Forgive does not mean that you have to accept that. So if you're Tiger Woods' wife, hopefully at some point she may forgive what he did. That doesn't mean she has to take him back. So forgiveness does not mean that you have to be with the person you're forgiving. Another myth is that I can't forgive until I really feel like it. If you believe that, the chances are it'll never happen. You will keep that poison because you're never going to feel like it. We never feel like forgiving. Forgiveness is not a feeling. Forgiveness is a choice that we make. It's a choice to release the resentment that we have over the wrongs that have been done to us. The fourth myth is that I can only forgive if the other person asks for it or shows remorse. If they don't show remorse, then I'm not going to forgive them. If you believe that, then you have put your well-being in the hands of another person, not only any other person, but somebody who has done you wrong is now controlling how you feel and controlling your well-being. They are holding the antidote to that poison that you're holding on. So you can forgive without any remorse on the part of the person who has done you wrong. The fifth one is that I can't forgive unless I have a guarantee that it'll never happen again. Well, maybe in some idyllic world there are such guarantees. But in the world that I live in, there are no guarantees. We can only be what we are here today. Who knows what tomorrow may bring? Choices are made all the time, and these choices can be very unfortunate. So how do you get to that point of forgiveness? Well, one thing is to examine your assumptions. When you make too many assumptions, well, you know the story about assumption versus assume. Stephen Covey tells a story of one time when he was on the subway, and there was a man there with his 3 children. And these small children were just running rampant all over the subway car, making life miserable for the people trying to travel. And he got more and more annoyed with this guy because his dad is just sitting there not doing anything to control these kids. He felt so resentful for that. Has that ever happened to you where you see a parent just letting their kids run wild? And he had all kinds of negative thoughts about this guy, and finally he couldn't stand it anymore. He walked up to the guy and says, "Sir, can't you control these brats of yours?" The man looked up with him with very sad eyes. He says, "You know, you're right, they are kind of behaving badly, but we just came back from the hospital and their mother just passed away and we're having a hard time with it." So what assumptions was he making before? And how does he see this person now? Every person that you forgive has a story like that. I didn't think that I would have a good story myself until I was walking over here from across campus. And I happened to see another individual who's employed here, with whom I've had a few, let's say, altercations, and things are not exactly wonderful between us. He saw me and he just glared in my direction. I thought, well, here's a perfect opportunity to just forgive and let it go. Let whatever he's carrying, carry him into his day. I don't have to carry that. So what can we do to help practice forgiveness? If I asked you to pick up a 250-pound weight when you'd never exercised before, would that be reasonable? If you were a runner, would you start by running a marathon without any kind of training? And so by asking to forgive, is that something that you practice, or is that a marathon that you want to run right away without any kind of preparation? So here's the practice. Take one thing, one small thing that somebody has done to you that's really made you mad. It could have been somebody who cut you off as you were driving to work. It could be somebody whose looks you just don't like. It might be some homeless person who you think, oh, they're just going to buy drugs for this. One person, and forgive them. And if you have nobody in your life that you feel you have to forgive, then write their name down and send it to the Vatican, because we need a lot of saints in our life. So I've given you some myths about forgiveness, and I've showed you a daily practice that you can do. That if you forgive one small thing, not a big thing, just a small thing every day, then you will learn to let go of the anger and the resentment that is holding you hostage. Mr. Toastmaster.